ProverbsGuy YouTube channel. I am here with a very special guest with a very touching ministry. This is Bride Ministries, and I am honored to have Eliana on here with us today. Eliana, how's your day going?
Going pretty good. The end of it. Praise Yahweh.
Hallelujah. Um, your ministry is a little bit different from a lot of other ministries that are out there, and I think that kind of makes it more special than your typical ministry. Do you want to kind of go into what exactly Warrior Bride Ministries is all about?
Sure. So we are a Torah observant ministry in the Atlanta metro area of Georgia, and we rehabilitate survivors of childhood sexual exploitation, which includes trafficking, ritual abuse, and any other horrific crime that you can imagine.
Okay. Now, you did mention to me that you guys it's not exclusively, but you do specialize in abuse victims within the church, correct?
Survivors of ritual abuse from the church, yes.
Now, I mean, I guess I'm wrong, but I never knew that there was such a vast amount of abuse survivors that were abused in the church. How did you even discover that need? Because I feel like it's kind of hush hush.
Yeah, you definitely are wrong. But that's okay. The amount of abuse that goes on in the church is definitely hush hush. And it can be anything from recently there was a situation in the Midwest where a pastor had been abusing multiple people in their youth group for many years. So something in a Christian, what we would consider standard church setting, all the way to like occultic ritual abuse, which happens. So I am actually, I was raised Luciferian. So I grew up in very similar situations and then walked through my own healing journey. And now we have Warrior Bride Ministries.
Okay. Now, you say ritualistic abuse, and this is within the church. I mean, that seems insane, but it's obviously an issue. Like, how does that go under the radar?
The same way everything else in the church goes under the radar. You know, kids that are afraid to say anything. It comes from multiple respects. We were talking about this a little bit before we got started. When you're talking about very young kids that start being abused at a very early age, they don't understand that what's happening is even wrong. It is normal for them. It's part of their life. It takes years to begin to comprehend that what happened was even wrong and that these people didn't love you. And then you have the other side of like secrecy and preserving people's honor. And you hear a lot like, oh, I can't do that to him. He's an elder in the church. What will the board think of him? What if the pastor gets fired? You'll destroy someone's family. So this whole secrecy element that goes on with a whole lot of guilt and shame that is put on survivors, that if they say anything, it will potentially cause more damage than what's actually happening to them.
Now, you said that these are, in a lot of cases, younger children. So is this stuff that their parents have discovered and they're helping cover up, or are they just waiting a long time to come forth to their parents, or is it a little bit of both?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. It really depends on the situation. In your standard church settings, a lot of times it's parents that don't know, and more occult, cultish type settings, it's parents being willing participants. But while the average age of rescue for kids in these situations is somewhere between 12 and 14, most of them report that their abuse started between 3 and 4. So
Now, you're a messianic ministry, but do you guys also deal with Protestant situations, or do you specifically try to help the healing in the messianic communities?
we see clients from all over the place. Most clients when they come to us hate God, period.
Yeah.
But from the moment they walk through our doors, they go through a period of healing called restoration of hope, where we try to affirm who Yahweh is in their life, what he was created for, where he was when these things happened. The idea of emunah, that Abba causes and allows all things, even if we can't see it, that he didn't want things to happen to them. He didn't want anything to happen, but it's all working for the greater good, which is hard to see in the moment. But looking back, if I wasn't who I was or raised the way I was, then I wouldn't be who I was today, and I wouldn't be here to help people. So the idea of having emunah in all situations. Um, but I would say that we have seen over 750 clients in 3.5 years, and only one of them was abused in a messianic situation. So
Wow. That is so sad. And thank you for the work that you guys are doing, because I feel like it's going to make a big impact, especially since children are our future. And if they're going around being hurt as children and hating God, that's a very dim look for Christianity and messianic faith in the future. So thank you for what you're doing.
when you think about the fact that um, our faith would be considered patriarchal to some degree. Like we have our founding father, not founding fathers, but Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and we look at Abba as father, and you have these people who were terribly hurt by men and want nothing to do with him, is very detrimental for the future of our faith.
Yeah, you're right. In these cases, have you discovered that most of the violators are men? Have you come across any situations where the violators were women?
It is a combination of there's always male perpetrators. Sometimes there are females who groom or who prepare them or who assist in the process. But there's always predominantly male perpetrators, but that doesn't mean that women don't have a part of it.
So, from what you're just described, it seems like in some situations, this is multi layered, like there's more than one violator tied to it. Is that correct? Like they're working
Definitely,
together?
definitely.
Wow. And the fact that they're able to keep it a secret with so many moving pieces, like that's astounding.
You'd be surprised. You'd be very surprised.
Yeah. With as wicked as the world's God, I'm ashamed to say I'm not that surprised, but it's still heartbreaking to hear.
There's nothing new under the sun, right? So while we talk about how wicked the world is, these things go back to earliest accounts of like Leviticus 11, Leviticus 20, with children being sacrificed to Baal and sex-based ceremonies. So
This is horrific stuff. How long has Warrior Bride Ministries been active, and is this what your purpose was from the onset?
so we are in our third year. So we started right before the pandemic. So fourth year. Um, my parents who founded it, not my biological parents, my mom had been doing this for 12 years prior. And then we founded Warrior Bride with the intent to help all survivors of any sort of childhood sexual, um, adverse sexual experiences. But when more and more people started showing up telling the same story from different parts of the country, different races, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different everything, it had to kind of make us take a step back and be like, hold on, what's going on here? And find as much information as we could that's available out there from places like Shatter the Darkness and stuff like that, to really get a grasp on what was happening. So I don't think we ever intended to go this deep, but they found us. So here we are.
Wow. So God opened up the doors and you walked through, and boldly at that. You said your ministry is just over 3 years old. How many cases, and I'm sure it's just a drop in the bucket, right? Because not everybody is going to come forward. But how many cases have you guys dealt with so far in your 3 years?
We've seen over 750 clients.
750 clients in 3 years.
We saw 493 clients in 2021. So,
That's over a client a day.
yes. Well, there's a lot of us. Well, there's like one, two, five of us. So,
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That is astounding. So if you could give us a guesstimation of how much of a percentage you think that might be of the abuse going on in the church? Would you be able to even put a number on it? Is it 2%? Is it 0.1%? Like, what's your best guess?
There was a very recent statistic that came out that estimated that for every community subdivision with 250 homes, at least 14 of them in some way had come in contact with ritualistic abuse in the church. So
Mhm. And would you say that overwhelmingly the abuses and the victims that you guys are helping are from a ritualistic, occultic abuse? Or what percentage is that versus just cases of, I don't want to, make this sound like it's not as important, but just regular abuses?
yeah, I know it always sounds bad. We're like regular trafficking or ritual trafficking.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that we probably wouldn't give an accurate picture because of the fact that we're kind of known for that. So I would
Hmm.
say over 70% of our clients do come from some sort of ritual background, but that's because we are the people that take them when everyone else gives up. When I get phone calls and we're like, there's no one that can take them, there's no one that can help them. Do you have anything available? Do you have a bed? Do you have this? Do you have that? We're kind of like the last resort. So we might have a higher than normal percentage because people come to us for that specifically.
Now, are they coming to you still as young people, or are they coming to you as adults years after the fact? Or is it also a mixture of both?
It's a mixture of both. We've had clients as young as 2 and as old as, sorry, my partner's here with me, 87, Miss Barbara? Yes. 87. So carried it around for years. She was a mess, but you know,
And
she
well, and you mentioned that a lot of times other ministries are reaching out to you and saying that they can't help. Like, what's the deal with that? Are they just, how many different ministries are these people having to seek out before they're actually able to find help?
I would say, in all honesty, hundreds. Um, just being a survivor myself, I know that I spent so long, so very long, trying to just put words to what happened or have a name or a label put on it. Because it would start out as like I was abused as a kid, right?
Hmm.
And churches do terrible damage, and because they don't understand and they have all these issues, so they shun them. And so I went from church to church to church to try to find something, to organization, to healing ministry, till I found one person that was willing to be like, whatever it takes. And she went on to become my parents. But I'm not talking about just ministries. I'm talking about like hospitals, inpatient psychiatric units call us to take people from them because they don't know what to do. So
And you mentioned if you have bed space, does that mean that you guys have like a ministry headquarters that you operate out of, or are you trying to place them in homes, or is that also a mixture of both?
it's a mixture of both. We have a 6,200 square foot of clinical space. We take a natural approach to healing. So we look at mind, body, and spirit. We start with teaching them Torah. We work on distress tolerance, emotional regulation, interpersonal relationships, mindfulness. We look at cognitive distortions. We look at trauma therapy. We also do neurofeedback, biofeedback, brain mapping, um, chiropractic services. We don't do any medication. We do all herbs and supplements and all of that. So we have a really big space to hold all of that. And then we did residential for a while. We cut back on residential for now, and we placed them with like host families. But our goal is to go back to residential by the end of the year. So
Now, how were you guys able to obtain the clinical space? Was that donated to you from another ministry, or did you guys go in on it and seek it out? How did that come about?
we sought it out. We are 100% donor funded because we are a 508, not a 501. So we have no governmental oversight because we don't believe that the government has any business in what Yahweh is doing.
Mm.
So we are 100% donor funded, no governmental grants or anything like that. And we have amazing sponsors that donate on a monthly basis and provide everything that our clients need.
Hallelujah. That is so awesome. Now, if somebody who watches this is touched by it and they want to help with your ministry, how can they reach out to Warrior Bride Ministries to get a hold of you guys to maybe help get funds to you or offer their services as a host family?
www.wbmga.org. So that's Warrior Bride Ministries Georgia.org, wbmga.org.
Okay. Are you guys also on Facebook or other social media platforms?
Facebook, Instagram. I think we have a TikTok now, which should be funny. I'm not on it. We
Yeah.
have a Twitter. We have a Telegram. We have a LinkedIn. You can pretty much find us everywhere. So.
Okay. And if you would like to provide me with those links, I will put them all in the description of the video to make it that much easier for people to reach out to you guys.
And if anyone's watching this that has been in a situation like this, and man, you can feel really desperate and really, really lost, and like no one's ever going to understand what's going on in your brain and that there's no help for you. But I want you to know that that's not true. Like, we love you already, and we live in community, and we want you to be a part of us, and we want you to heal, and we want you to prosper and become everything that Yahweh has ever called you to be. And we don't
Completion.
charge and we don't charge anything for any services. Our clients pay absolutely nothing because there should be no barrier on healing.
Yeah. In your example, you said you've helped over 900 clients,
750.
750. In your experience, how many of the 750 were you able to help? How many of them just finally gave up and left?
I don't think that any of them give up and leave. They get as much healing as they're ready for at that point.
Okay.
Healing, I've had to learn to redefine healing, especially when you look at trauma. You're never going to be the person you were before trauma. So how do we measure if they're healed or not? Are they functioning members of society? Are they walking the purpose that Abba has for them? Are they bearing the fruit of the Spirit? We measure when something might trigger them and it might take them 3 months to recover. And now it takes them 3 days or 3 hours or 3 minutes. That's healing. But you're never who you were before it. So I would say that a large majority of the people who want to heal get exactly what they want for that moment. We have had, unfortunately, maybe 10% that have chosen not to heal, or that it was too hard, or that they didn't want to do it, or that they did something outlandish. And I mean really outlandish, because you have to do something pretty crazy to get kicked out of here. We had a
Sure.
client poison and we didn't kick him out. So we have
Wow.
it's pretty kind of crazy to get kicked out. So luckily it's only a very small percentage that do that.
Now, I realize you can't put like walls and barriers around the Holy Spirit. He's going to heal in his time frame. So I respect that. But on a regular basis, how long do you think it takes typically each one of your victims to be able to get to a healed state to where they can go back out into society and function?
15 to 24 months.
Wow. Okay. And while they're staying with host families, are they coming to see you guys daily? Is it just a couple times a week? How does that work?
It really depends on their treatment plan. Their restoration of hope phase, which is the first phase, is 12 weeks of 4 to 5 times a week. From there, we're working on a day treatment program, which is 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then Shabbat service here. So it's a rather intensive program, depending on how much care they need, but some of them can't. I remember the first residential client that we had. She's one of those that will forever stick in your brain. She was 19 years old. She was trafficked in the foster care system.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't even know how to wash her own hair. We're talking about people who have been severely abused for an extended period of time that don't have basic skills. My mom can tell you story after story of having to teach kids to sit at a table and eat with a fork because they were so used to being chained up and eating with a dog collar on. Like, the amount of abuse that our clients have suffered far surpasses what normal human beings can begin to comprehend. So the fact that in 15 to 24 months, we could take someone who doesn't know how to eat with silverware or wash their hair and have them reading and understanding Torah and going to congregation and having a love for Abba and having a plan for their life and a genuine joy that they're choosing despite their circumstances and being a functional member of society and successful by their terms is only the rock.
Yeah. The intake process, when they first come to you guys, do you have a select set of staff members that welcome them in and go over like an evaluation to kind of determine what type of counseling plan they're going to need?
So I'm not the welcoming committee because anyone who knows me or comes here will tell you it's like going to the principal's office if you have to see me. But we
Okay.
do have a welcoming committee, and other people handle like our client handbook and what rules and expectations are. I do a lot of their evaluations and assessments. I create treatment plans, I write curriculum and stuff like that. I'm the program director, so that's my primary function.
Okay.
And I enforce rules.
Yeah. How many uh how many staff members do you guys have at any given time?
Right now we currently have 7 staff members. So a
So
lot
this
of
is
volunteers,
go ahead.
a lot of volunteers, um, and some part-time staff and an intern. And yeah, we're not a small organization.
Yeah, no. Wow, I am blown away by this. Like, I really am. 7 plus staff members, and you've handled 750 plus cases. I mean, is this like 2 full-time jobs?
Yeah. Yes. I filled out recently I filled out some paperwork for my congregation, and they're like, how many hours a week do you work? And that's all of them. All of them. We are always on call. You never know. Like, we were sitting in Shabbat service probably about 2 months ago and got a phone call from the police that one of our clients was suicidal and had a gun and holding her family hostage. Not like intentionally, but like she had a gun in the house. She was 14 and her family was in there, so it was considered a hostage situation, but she just wanted to kill herself. So we just left Shabbat service for full-time job and some.
Wow. God bless you guys. I mean, this is awesome, the work you're doing, and I really mean that.
Appreciate it.
Now, this is such a sensitive topic because literally everyone who comes to you guys has been abused and they're hurting. They already don't trust. How do you go through the vetting process for your host families to ensure that they're not going from like the skillet to the frying pan?
Very, very carefully. And that's why we have very, very few. So,
Yeah. So do you basically just use them as overflow when you run out of other housing space?
yeah, and they're people that we've known for a long time or that people close to us have known for a long time. Um, as we grow and one of our future plans is something called Agape Redemption Ministry, which is a community of housing for kids to heal with the idea that like people heal best within healthy limitations in a community where everything can be trusted. So we have to look at everything in that and finding host families that are willing to deal with honestly some of the most difficult behaviors. Like I said, we had a client poison us. Like but on top of that, that are okay with things like cameras and security checks and how we have to do things, which can sometimes seem regimented and strict, but it's to protect everyone, you know. So
Of course, yeah, and in that
uh,
situation, you can't be too safe.
exactly. So,
Wow. How many host families would you say that you guys work with? And what is like the common stay period for a client with one of the host families?
so how many do we work with, or how many do we need? We need about 25.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
it's like I said, very hard to get to that. People get burnt out very quickly. Um, it's one of those things that you really have to be called to, because I can do this all day, every day, and I remember the very first time a client hit me. We went to assist with a rescue in New Hampshire, and this client straight up punched me, like sucker punched me in the jaw. And I was too busy trying to realize that she actually hit me. And by the time I realized that she actually hit me, she had like broke my ribs and totally beat the crap out of me. And we've had many situations like that where we've had to jump in a car and drive to Illinois or drive somewhere to assist in a situation. And I'm not tired. I'm not burnt out. I'm not overwhelmed. I still have room and space for my own children, you know. So I have to believe that Allah has called and equipped me for this. And when people hear this, they're like, oh, yeah, I want to be a host family. You really have to know that this is what you're called to, because we have such a high turnover because people think they want to do it and they're not actually called to it.
Hmm.
And it's just really detrimental to our clients because every time you quit on them is another layer of rejection. It was, I'm too much, I'm too this, I'm too that. People don't love me. They gave up on me. So choosing to be host families or become parents to these kids is a lifelong decision. They're your kids forever, or you just become another landfill of trauma for them to heal from.
Sure. Now, do you guys, I know that you are a messianic ministry. Do you only work with host families that are Torah observant, or do you take in Protestant host families as well if it's on their heart to help?
We have had Protestant families before. It becomes really hard because they are being taught like in typical like human form. They're being taught all day like Torah, and they're doing Torah studies and whatnot, and then they go home and they're like, well, the Bible says you're not supposed to do this. It causes some contention. So if we have host families that are open to that, we would not reject you based on that, but you
Hmm.
would have to understand that this is what we're going to teach them. And you'd have to respect the fact that while they're in our care, we have authority over them, that we don't want them to eat pig. And they're not going swimming on to the swimming pool on Shabbat, you know, and we're not buying and selling and things like that. So if families can respect our wishes, we don't require any of our volunteers to be messianic, as long as they can appreciate the fact that we are. And we're going to take the kids to the feast, and we're going to celebrate Pesach with them, and we're going to take them camping for Sukkot, and we're going to do that with all of our clients. So it
Fair
is
enough.
a double.
A double-edged sword. Mm. You know, I have a unique perspective. with the faith, the Protestant grace side and the Torah observant side, because my dad was Torah observant, so we grew up Torah observant, but my mom was Pentecostal, so we also grew up Pentecostal. And I never found the two faiths conflicting. I was always able to recognize the balance of obeying God's laws and showing our love for him through our obedience, but also appreciating and accepting the grace of Yeshua, the grace of Christ. It baffles me how many people think that the two can't coexist when they really do.
I think that we are definitely an exception to some of the things that you find in Torah. Like, we believe in inner healing and deliverance, probably step one. The time you come in the door, I'm trying to get you in a prayer room to get rid of some of that you
Yeah.
came here with.
Yeah.
So, where in that case, like, I do think that to some degree it does coexist, but for anyone who doesn't walk the way that we walk, sometimes it can be difficult. So
Sure. Yeah, no, I get that. Oh, this is good stuff. Is there anything that we haven't gone over yet that you think is very crucial for people to know? A question that I haven't thought to ask that is on your heart that you feel like should be shared with people that they maybe don't realize?
I think that there are some statistics that people need to be aware of to protect kids as much as possible that I think are really important. One, 55% of survivors are girls. What's that mean, Stephen?
That means 45% are men or boys.
Most people don't think that.
Yeah.
That it doesn't even cross their mind that little boys have to be protected too. The other thing that I think is really important is to always believe a child. The FBI did a study, which is rather interesting for them to have done, but they say 0.1% of children make up abuse. And I think that the other important thing to know is if a kid says something weird to you, never take it at face value. We heard a story last month was Human Trafficking Month. We heard a story about an elementary school little girl who didn't have proper names for her genitalia, and her family called her parts a cookie. So she went to her teacher and she said that her uncle keeps kissing her cookies and she doesn't like it. And the teacher said, well, maybe you should share with him. It's not the teacher's fault, but think when kids disclose something to you that seems really important to them, could this mean more than what I think it does? Because that little kid's teacher told her to let her uncle abuse her. So
Wow.
no one else is going to watch out for our children. We have to.
Out of all of these cases that you guys have worked with, how many of the abusers would you say, if you have a statistic, what percentage were actual pastors or leaders in the church?
You don't want to know the answer to that.
I feel like they need to know, though.
I would say that the amount of abusers that are leaders in the church is second only to the family that's doing it. So if it is 50% family, it's 45% leaders and 5% the rest of the world.
Does anything shock you anymore?
Uh, I mean, No, not at this point. I did see a video of like a alien space shuttle the other day being chased by like a military plane. That was a little surprising, but aside from that,
All right.
no, no, not really. Um, I've heard things that should have never been repeated. I've lived things that people should have never lived. And I've walked with people through things that they should have never had to walk through. So it's very hard. And sometimes we'll get those teenagers that really want to like give you that startle factor, like they're waiting for your response. It doesn't work here. Like there's not much I haven't heard at this point. But the good side of that is if you're listening to this and you feel like you're unique, you're not. And nothing you say is gonna scare me or make me love you any less.
How do you separate the hurt that you see daily and the trauma that you deal with daily? How do you separate that from your home life? Does it ever drag over? Does it ever affect your home life?
Probably only when I bring them home with me. I am I am of the mindset that there should be no barriers to healing. So if there's not a bed open, if there's not a place to put you, and I have room in my house, then you're coming with me. You know, I currently have what do we have 7 people in the house right now? And it's just it's a ever growing, ever changing circle. But if you really want to heal and you show me you really want to heal, and your only barrier is you need a place to live, well, I've got a bed somewhere or a cot or something. But emotionally, it is only the ruach that allows me to keep that separate because some days I'm very stressed. And my kids know, they'll be gentle on me and I can be a little snappy, but what you would expect, like I'm not that helicopter mom that's like got my kids wrapped in bubble wrap and stuff like that. Like I still let them live a normal life. I try not to let what I do spill over to them. They're very much aware of it. But it's only the Holy Spirit that allows me to be able to function as a normal person. And when I'm here at work, I'm one way, and as soon as I walk out the door, I'm completely different. Even if you come home with me, you'll be like, "Are you the same person?" You're like, "Yeah, come on, let's go sit outside and have a party. Let's light a fire. Let's do this. Like, let's do whatever it takes." And twice a year, we get to go on sabbatical, um, which is a much welcomed break. I work for a nonprofit, so we don't get paid much. So our sabbatical is like camping in the most primitive places that you can imagine, from like hip camp, like $15 campsites because there's not a toilet in sight, but just disconnecting from everything and finding that shalom, that peace. Be it we camped on top of the Catskills this past summer in an 820-acre forest, and to wake up and to feel like the air vibrating from insect wings, or to watch the sunrise and realize that like it's obeying the word of Yahweh to rise this morning is what keeps me going and what helps me separate from everything.
That's beautiful. So you are able to keep it separate.
Yeah.
I want to be really careful and respectful of how I ask this question because I don't at all want to come across like I'm, labeling the victims as possible predators. So know that ahead of time. But I saw an interesting article not long ago that I believe it was like 60 to 70% of abusers were abused themselves in childhood. With that in mind, how do you cipher through like who you can bring home to your family and trust around your kids, if that question makes sense?
It does, and that is a very real thing. So we have a variety of assessments that gauge that. Because it's not even like most people would think, like, oh, don't bring home adult men because you got teenagers. It's not even that. Because I don't know what study you're referencing or what article you're referencing, but a lot of times that's talking about adults who go on to abuse. But
Hmm.
what it's not taking into consideration is peer-to-peer abuse, which is a very real thing. Kids that don't understand that sex is bad because that's what they've done their entire life. So they're exposing themselves to other children and they're touching other kids. I had a story of someone told me not long ago about being in daycare at a very young age and watching um, this little girl sit in the corner and pull up her dress for little boys to kiss her. That's that would be I can't ever say that word. Um, an example of peer-to-peer abuse as a byproduct of abuse. So our house is uniquely set up. Um, it's funny because when we moved in there, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to spend so much money to change all of these locks because every door locks. Every single door in the house locks. You can't get out of my house without a key. Like you can't get into a room with a key. So at that point, I was like, man, this is really weird. But one of those cases of now that Abba knew in advance and allowed it to happen, that I can be completely confident having anyone there with my kid because unless they have a key, they're not getting anywhere. So
Yeah.
I definitely have an advantage to that. So
Isn't our God so awesome that he provided you with that home before you even knew that you would have a need for it? Like that's the God we serve, and I think that is so amazing.
and I was mad too. It's one of those circumstances like don't get mad too quick because you don't know what it's for. It was a blessing in disguise. So
Yeah. Is there anything else that we need to know? Anything that you wanted to go over?
nope, I think you covered just about it. I think that's a lot for people to digest and to chew on. And if it's something that piques their interest, they can go online and sign up to get our newsletter. We have several conferences that we teach a couple times a year um, that help people to understand more. A lot of your viewers might be in a place with like that was a lot to digest. What do we do now? What do we do with this? How do we help? I can't answer that question for any of you, but Abba can and
I
take it to him.
I realize that you guys are a large ministry with a lot of needs, but for the viewers who are watching this, what is your guys' biggest need? Is it clothing? Is it funding? Is it housing?
It is right now funding. If we look at the state of the world, we are in a recession. We are in a critical place to even keep our doors open. We have maybe an interesting philosophy that we don't turn anyone away and we don't charge for anything as long as we have a place to see you, we'll see you. And we hope that we can continue to have that place to see them. We do have some fundraisers going to make sure that our bills can be paid through and all of that. We're not behind. We don't have like we have several months in reserve, but what used to be in donations has probably decreased by 80% with the economy. And Abba provides them.
Yes, he
So
does. Um, and it's not at all to question the need for your ministry, funding wise, because I don't think there's another ministry out there that is as noble as what you guys are doing. But people, when they give, they do like to know like where it's gonna go. What are you going to use the funds for? Could you kind of break that down for us?
So the standard question in nonprofit world is what percent goes to client programs and what percentage goes to overhead costs. So overhead costs, which don't directly go to our clients, is 12%. The other 88 goes to food, clothing, shelter, transportation, um, programming, sessions, neurofeedback, biofeedback, the chiropractor, medical, dental, eye care, anything that you can think of on top of our building to have them in, and everything else. So 8812.
Okay.
That's primarily because we don't have, we can keep it much lower because we don't have non-program based staff. So we don't have a receptionist. So it might take us a long time to get back to you. All of our
Yeah.
efforts are client focused, so we can keep it relatively low.
Do they donate directly through your website? Are you guys doing a GoFundMe? Do they just send it to you through PayPal or Cash App? What's the quickest, most efficient way to get you guys funding?
We have a whole website set up, which is, I mean, you can donate on there. You can pick what you donate to. Um, and you can obviously, on our website, there's a place to mail a check. We also have a store with some t-shirts if you from a slogan from a speech I gave a while ago called "I Won't Be Quiet So You Can Be Comfortable." The idea of stirring people to action to do something about it, not to just hear, but to make you uncomfortable enough to want to make a difference in the world. So all of that's on our website. I hope you like it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I think it looks pretty good.
All right. Do you guys have a YouTube channel to kind of go through some of your testimonies? If you don't, it's a great idea.
So we're working on that. It's hard to get clients past the fear of speaking out
Yeah.
and the fear of retaliation and a very fine line of re-exploitation. Like, I don't want you to tell your story so people give us money, because that's no different than someone selling you for sex. So
Yeah. I respect that. Eliana, it's been really great talking with you. And it's clear that you have a heart for this and that God has put the right woman in the position that you're in. And I just want to thank you for doing what you're doing.
and thank you for doing what you do and spreading the word and whatnot. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support. We have not really made a lot of effort to be known in the Torah community, but I think that there's no better time than now than to wake people up to this, and the fact that we have Mishpachah, Mishpachah who are actively working in the fight to end modern day slavery.
Yeah, you're right. And that's what it is. Well, thank you so much for being on here today. You are Eliana with Warrior Bride Ministries, and I am Proverbs Guy with the Proverbs Guy official YouTube channel. Um, I pray that God puts it on everyone's heart who's watching this to dig as deep into their wallets and their bank accounts as they can to help get you the funding, because it is such a need, and it's helping heal a lot of wounds that were created in the church. And I think that's going to be the starting point to turn the modern church around.